So, I didn't plan on taking another week-long break, but you know what? I live in America. I don't think that requires any further explanation. So, before we start the penultimate episode of this season, I really want to ask y'all what you would like to see from me going forward. I do have some of my own ideas that will end up taking priority because I really do these videos for me at the end of the day, but I would still really love to hear what y'all think I should do, any suggestions that you may have so I can kind of add that to the pile. Maybe it can give me further inspiration for other things. They could be like one-off videos with a specific topic, little mini-series, top 10 videos, tier lists. I know those were popular for a while and I still really enjoy them. Other seasons of other remakes that you would want me to do a rewatch of, just really anything. You can leave them in the comments, you can message me on Tumblr, whatever you want. I would love to hear some feedback as we kind of wrap up this rewatch because it's gonna be over real soon. So yeah, any feedback would be very much appreciated, and let's start part 1 of episode 9. Also, one more thing that I forgot to mention is that people are doing yard work, so if you can hear like buzzing in the background, I'm sorry, there's nothing I can do. People are always doing yard work at this time of year, like any time that I would try to film, any day, ever. So Mateo is listening to Take Me to Church again with his headphones on. He's literally trying to like envelop himself in these memories with David, and he wants to feel close to David. And we've seen him do stuff like this before. You know, we saw him start to watch Only Lovers Left Alive when he was feeling lonely before. We heard him listening to Take Me to Church literally right after David first introduced him to the song as a way to kind of keep that energy going, keep that love going. And we've also seen him use headphones before as a coping mechanism. And I mentioned in episode 7 how I thought it was a great growth moment for Mateo, that instead of reaching for the weed, which we know is another coping mechanism for him, he pulled on his headphones and he used that to give himself some comfort. And that's still what he's doing here. Even when things are really bad and worrisome and he doesn't know what's going on with David, he doesn't know if David is okay, he is turning to headphones and comfort food as well. 2 things that are pretty healthy coping mechanisms. So that's really great. And of course, it wouldn't be a So Free Watch video at this point if I didn't mention Evacuality, but they have a post about this and what Mateo is doing here and how it is similar to how we've seen him cope before, but also how it's importantly different. And I really love that post, so I highly recommend reading it. It will be in the description, like always. And I have mentioned briefly a couple of times about the food symbolism in this season, but I do want to mention it here because they pass around the vat of pasta, which I really love. They are a group. They are in this together. They show that by sharing the food with one another and passing it around. So as everyone starts talking, you can see that Mateo is staying silent. He's not really saying anything. He's kind of just letting it all happen around him. He keeps kind of shifting a little bit. You can tell he's deep in thought, definitely, especially right here. But he's not really saying anything. He's letting things process, which we know is something that Mateo does. He takes time to think about what he's gonna say. And you can see that he doesn't want to fuck it up. He's really trying to figure out what the best thing to say is here. I love this moment. You can see clearly that he is on the brink of tears. I don't know what song this is, I have no idea. I don't think it's listed really anywhere, but it's a beautiful little piano instrumental. And you can see here that this is Mateo realizing that all of these people are here for him and they want to help not only David, but they also want to help Mateo because, I mean, part of the reason why they want to help David is because they know that he's important to Mateo. And I mentioned it at the beginning of episode 7, how when he found the gift from Hannah, he took a little bit to kind of let it register in his mind that someone would be there for him and that Hannah would be there for him and would give him a gift and offer a hand to him. And it took him a second to get it. It took him a second to let it sink in. And this is definitely reminiscent of that moment, but just to a much bigger scale. This is Matteo's support system. This is all of it. He's literally surrounded by it. He's in the middle of it. Everything else fades, all of the sounds fade, and he's just letting it all sink in. He is not alone anymore, and he is not letting himself be alone. He's not isolating himself. And I think that this moment of realization right here is vital for this episode. I think it sets up the last clip really, really well. Matteo knowing once and for all that he has this support system, he is not alone, people are here for him. I think that that knowledge allows him to say what he says to David in the last clip. Him realizing that he is not alone allows him to help David realize that he's not alone either, that he doesn't have to be alone, which of course I will talk more about when we actually get to the last clip. But I do think it's cool that there are a lot of little instances and little moments in this clip that set up things in the last clip, and that's one of them. Matteo speaks up. Not only does he speak up, he actually leans forward into the conversation. He leans forward into the group. So his body language really shows that he's not being passive anymore. He wants to be heard. He does not want to just fade into the background for his own sake, but also, of course, for David's sake as well. And I think this moment is just so important. And I think Matteo knows that it's important as well. Not only is it important because he wants to be heard, but it's important because although everyone does mean well and they want to help David, Matteo is very, very right to recenter the conversation to focus on David and David's feelings and what David would want, because it's about David. And they should be thinking about him, not about themselves here. And I like how as he's talking, it is still kind of clumsy. From what I can tell, he's not mumbling, but he is still kind of looking around and saying, and when he finishes, he looks around like, did I do it right? Did I say that right? And as soon as he's done, he, removes himself from the middle of the circle again and kind of crosses his arms, which I really like because this is new for Matteo. Speaking up and being active is still new to him. He's very much not used to being the center of attention, especially when he's speaking and speaking on behalf of someone that he loves and that everyone here now suddenly knows that he loves. So I do really like that bit of realism there. It would be strange if all of a sudden he was like very confident to just speak up and was very confident in everything that he was saying. So I like that that's not the case at all. It's still definitely not something that comes naturally to him, and it might never be something that comes naturally to him just because of his demeanor and his personality. But you can see so much growth, because he's trying. And that is more than we ever really saw him do in the beginning of the season. He would always just let people speak over him. He would not really let his presence be known, and he just didn't really care to try. He didn't have the energy to try. Even though this speech is a little bit clumsy, and even though he's kind of relieved to be done with it, he still does it, and that is everything. So I'm pretty sure that says to give away how to disappear completely and never be found. And I'm like almost 100% positive, I actually am 100% positive that this box isn't from David and Laura's apartment, so it's not David's book. But I think you can see on Matteo's face that it clearly reminds him of David anyway. And I feel like in Matteo's mind it must kind of feel like a sick coincidence and a sick joke from the universe that this person is giving away this book about how to disappear. Meanwhile, his boyfriend is still literally, he has disappeared. And I think this could also be some interesting foreshadowing for the end of this episode. In this moment, in this clip right now, I'm sure it just seems like a sick joke to Matteo. But by the end of the episode, David is going to pretty much give away this fantasy of his of running away and disappearing. He is going to make a huge step in finding a better way to cope. And that fear of intimacy runs so deep within David, so of course it's not going to be gone forever by the end of this episode, but he's gonna definitely make some headway. And a big part of that is through Mateo. So I think that is kind of cool foreshadowing, even though it definitely doesn't seem happy right now. It doesn't seem like a good sign to Mateo right now. Still very weird that their door is just open. Everyone has said that, and you know, even though it is weird that the door is just open when he gets to the apartment, I do think that could be kind of a cool contrast to how when David sent the first text back in episode 5, you know, Mateo immediately went to this apartment to try to find him and try to talk to him, and Laura didn't let him in. She didn't let him pass the door. But now, I'm assuming she left it open for Mateo to just walk right in. So that's a cool contrast. It's the same idea of Mateo being worried about David and being confused about David, and going to his house to try to find him and to try to fix this and figure out what's going on, figure out how he can fix this, how he could help. He is actually allowed into the space this time by Laura, by the person in David's family that he is closest to. So I think that's a cool moment. Even though, yes, it is kind of weird that the door is just left open, maybe that could be why. It could be a cool contrast. So David has escaped. He has run away to a place where he feels safe. Give him time. Time is really important in this episode. Time comes up once again in the last clip, but I think it also has been important in the last episode as well. So in the previous episode, Mateo needed time to process things, and he took that time away from David in order to do that, right? And in this episode, David also takes some time to himself away from Mateo to try to cope with this horrible thing that has happened to him. So in both instances, they have taken time away from one another in order to deal with something, in order to process something. And Laura is telling Mateo, you know, you need to give him a little bit more time. He needs some more time away from you. And that's just it. You know, you need to respect that. You need to respect that boundary. And Mateo is going to do that. And that's a really big moment of growth for him as well, because he was very quick in episode 5 to just immediately go to physically be close to David and to try to figure out what happened and how we could fix it and what's going on. But here, he is going to take Laura's advice. He is going to give David the time that he needs. He is going to leave the control in David's hands. Even though Mateo does contact him and he does text him and send him some voice messages, he does still leave all of the control in David's hands, which is really important. And he lets him have all the time that he needs. And I will come back to this moment in the last clip, and specifically that time and what time means for David and Mateo. How many times am I going to reference the last clip? Is this the new drinking game for this episode? Is this it? Oh, man, imagine that. Imagine a message like that. Couldn't be me. This isn't about my trauma. Okay, so this is Bound by RyX. I have mentioned that RyX is one of the important artists in this season. I think possibly the most important artist besides Hosier, obviously. Of course he's important. But RyX specifically has shown up in some very pivotal moments for Mateo. Back in episode 3, Mateo used his song called The Water to try to calm him down during his panic attack. The song Untold played when he and David had their first kiss. And now this one is playing when his mom texts him and says that she accepts him and loves him no matter what. So the lyrics of this song: with our minds gone, we can only know the feeling of our bodies open. Peel it off, let me go, hold our heart out, let these feelings show. To me, these lyrics are about letting yourself be known by someone, regardless of any insecurities or fears that may have held you back in the past. And I think those lyrics fit so perfectly for what's happening here, because Mateo has been honest with his mother, and she has done the same in turn. I really like this shot. I don't know if people find it silly or cringy, or I don't know, that it takes you out of it, but I really, really like it. I think it shows more of Druck's creative editing, and also the fact that they take really any opportunity to play with the format of the show and to call direct attention to it, which definitely, yeah, it does take you out of it for a second because you're like, wait, what the fuck? His head is in the O. Yeah, it takes you out of it, but I like it. I don't know, because it's something that druck does. It's something that they have a tendency to do. I don't think it's out of left field at all for them to do something like this, because they do love breaking the fourth wall in that way. So Mateo does send David a message, but he really is taking Laura's advice and not crowding David, not pressuring him. He really is, like I said before, leaving the control and the power in David's hands, which is so important right now. He's checking in, letting him know that he's still thinking of him and that he cares about him, and remaining active in that way, but also respecting David's space and what he needs right now. I love that quote. I really love that quote. This fear inside of you is just strength wanting to get out. This is such a beautiful moment between Amira and Mateo, and it really makes me wish that their friendship was built upon further in season 4. And I think that this statement in particular is especially poignant and effective because it is exactly what Mateo has done throughout this season. He really did start off this season being insecure and passive and scared, and letting his intense fear of loneliness and abandonment control him completely. It might not seem like it makes sense for someone who's so scared of being lonely and so scared of being abandoned to then isolate themselves and to, make efforts to be away from people and to not let himself be heard. But if you think about it as kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy, it starts to make a lot more sense. The way that I think about Mateo's character in relation to that fear of abandonment that is so present in his character is that he's probably thinking, or especially in the first half of the season, right? He's definitely thinking, okay, well, everyone's probably going to leave anyway. I don't offer anything. I'm not even myself, really. I offer nothing. People are going to leave. So there's no point in trying. There's no point in trying to get them to stay. In fact, I should probably just get them to leave because they're going to do it anyway, right? And that's exactly what a self-fulfilling prophecy is. And that's exactly what he does in episode 6. Throughout the first half of the season, he really let that fear control him. And he let it rule his life and make him continue to be passive and continue to just not really care and isolate himself and have these maladaptive coping mechanisms. But as he's grown throughout the season, I feel like he has done what Amira is saying right now. He has let the strength that is underlying that fear come to the surface a little bit more. Instead of letting that fear control him and letting it rule his life, he has fought against it actively, and he has built bridges, and he has allowed himself to be closer to people and allowed himself to be vulnerable and open about not wanting to be lonely. And later we're going to see him fight to make sure that David knows that he doesn't need to be alone. So I think that quote is so perfect for Mateo's growth, and hearing it from someone else, I think, really solidifies that for him. So David really does sound confident there. He sounds confident that he will be back on Thursday, and that implying that he will see Mateo on Thursday. And I have heard that while this was airing live, people did not appreciate the fact that it seemed like the reunion clip was going to be on Thursday. Seems like they were kind of baited into believing that that would be the case, when in fact Mateo and David don't actually see each other until Friday. I'm going to talk about why I like this a little bit later, but I do like it. I like this decision to have David seem so confident here, but then have that confidence wear away as the week goes on. And that even though he does come back to Berlin on Thursday, he hides out and he hides away, and all of that confidence that he might have had kind of gets shattered once he's back in this place that caused him so much grief. So I can't speak for how it felt live. I could imagine it could have been frustrating, especially based on the last episode and how frustrating the pacing was in that one. Coming right off of the heels of that, I really do think that it would have been frustrating to be led to believe that they would reunite on Thursday and then have that not happen. But watching it back, marathoning it, I do think it was a good decision narratively, and I do think it deepens actually both of their characters really well, which once again I'm going to talk about later. That's just me. That's just my opinion. So that's all I'm going to touch on for this episode. I will see y'all in the next part. Thank you for watching.